This is the A to Z podcast, back from the Bahamas edition. I am Zach Jackson. My Caribbean friend is Andre Knott. Wait, are the Bahamas in the Caribbean?
Yeah, I'm on. It's in the Caribbean. Yeah, it's in the Caribbean. I thought it was in America, too, for a little while, but it wasn't.
You learn something every day.
I mean, I knew better. I'm being a jackass, but yeah.
You guys can find us at facebook.com/A to Z podcast, at A to Z podcast.com. Our sponsors are Cleveland Scene, the Honeymoon Grill, and American Fireworks. We like to give the disclaimer that we venture into mature/immature subjects. We often get excited, say four-letter words. So if that's not for you, if there are kids around or if you're in a work environment, please put on your earbuds or come back and listen to us at another time. We don't want anyone to get in trouble for listening to A to Z. Now, Dre, it's been a while. It really hasn't been that long, but, you know, the Super Bowl marks a change in the sports calendar. It always does. I mean, for me, someone that covers the NFL, that's kind of my new year, right, is Super Bowl Monday. You wake up, you want to throw up, you hate yourself, and then you kind of move forward. The Browns cut a guy the very first day. They're not the only team that did that.
Vallejo?
Yeah.
Was it Vallejo?
Yeah, they're not the only team that did that. It's kind of standard procedure. A week or so after the Super Bowl, pitchers and catchers report. And then we know in the NBA, there are only 2 days that matter in the regular season, and that's Christmas to an extent, but the trade deadline. And this was really one for the ages, both for trades that did and didn't get made. So we've kind of had our cleansing here. Even I got my fat ass on the exercise bike this morning. You're back dealing with hangovers, real and perceived, from your vacation. And away we go with the podcast.
Yeah. Somebody thinks – I tell you what, if I don't work within the NFL again, I may never be in America during the Super Bowl. It was one of the most satisfying Super Bowl weeks for me ever. And obviously I was in paradise, but it was – and maybe it's just because we're so used to the overload. I'm so used to the overload of Super Bowl talk, and I've been a part of that. So I'm not, pointing the finger at anyone or calling anybody out. But it was just refreshing that I didn't really look at newspapers. I didn't look at Twitter very much. TV, I didn't really watch very much from Tuesday till Sunday. It was kind of cool. Hell, even Super Bowl Sunday, morning, I was out in a boat for 5-6 hours in the sun.
With your life jacket on?
I didn't even wear one. I said the hell with it. It was only 15 feet deep, so they told me. I figured with my height and everything else, you put about 8 of me on top of each other, I could make it all the way back up. I could float my way back up. I had like 8 other people that could swim that was with me. I figured if I died in that situation, it was my time to go. But it was refreshing. It was a different feel towards the Super Bowl. I enjoyed it. I didn't get too crazy. I will say this: no matter what part of the country you're in, because in flying home, I saw more New England. I felt like I was in New England watching the game. It sounded like it in Atlanta, and it was like that in Atlantis, in the Bahamas. Where I was at. It was just ridiculous how many. And maybe that comes from winning 6 Super Bowls over the last 15, 18 years. But it's odd just to see how many Patriots fans are everywhere. It was nauseating, to say the least. But it sounded like that in Atlanta as well. And I know people that were at the game that kind of said the same thing, that it felt like a New England home game. I'll just say this and get it out of the way. If New England loses, I'll ask this question rather than saying this. If New England were to lose the game, and they very easily could have lost the game. It's a one-possession game. They don't lose those in the Super Bowl, but most teams can and will. If they lose that game, does everyone kill Tom Brady for how bad he was on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, we live in a Jordan face or trophy society, right?
Right. Yeah, but he didn't play that well. I guess what I'm saying is he didn't play that well.
He didn't.
But everybody killed Goff. Everybody kills Goff, and Goff didn't play well. And I'm not a Goff fan, but he got the shit beat out of him. And football to me, football is very easy. It's boxing, and for every person that I heard just say, "Oh, I'd take Johnny." Okay, well, whatever. This guy made it to the Super Bowl. He got beat up a little bit in the NFC Championship game and made some good throws. If Brandon Cooks catches that ball, the touchdown before he throws the interception in the fourth quarter, it's a different game. I get the quarterback position is the most important position on the field, and we built it up that way. But to me, Goff played terrible. His offensive line played worse. Bill Belichick and the defensive scheme they came up with was to beat the shit out of Goff. It worked. It would have did, and I had somebody tell me, well, Breeze would. I go, well, Breeze was bad the last month too, and if they couldn't block one, the same thing would have happened. I just, at some point in time, give some credit to defense. They work just as hard as the other guys, and this is the last thing I'll say about it. I remember after that great Monday night game where it was about 150 points scored in 2 minutes, I remember saying to you on this podcast, I know it's fun, we're all enjoying it, but at some point in the day, football will turn back into football when the playoffs come around, and that's exactly what happened. Defense won the championship, period.
Well, sure. I think the one reminder from the playoffs to eager Browns fans and excited Browns fans, and they have a reason to be, is that your defense isn't there yet, right?
Right.
The Chargers got a freaking wrecking crew on defense, 3 of the best guys in the league, and they got wrecked by New England.
Right.
And then, what New England has done, regardless of what you think about Josh McDaniels, why he's always a candidate, is that they're all weather. They adapt to the shape of the game, and they have 2 game plans, and they have all of these things. But at this stage, Dre, especially with a healthy Sony Michel and a healthy Rex Burkhead and being able to keep Gronk in the garage for the time they did, if it turns into an ugly game, that's what they want. Right, because they didn't need to take many.
Right.
They took a handful of chances. They only hit on one they didn't need to. They just took the single coverage when it was there. They used the backs to hammer away, and they didn't need to do much. And, they are so adaptable, in addition to just being, so prepared and Tom Brady being what he was. And you're right. This is what it is. And I think when you look at the headlines of sports for the whole week, all of these guys take the fall, right? And unless Tom Brady, one of these Februaries, accepts the trophy and kisses everybody on the lips and says, I'm out of here, then eventually, he is eventually one of these Septembers when we all write him off on every show, every podcast, every blog, we're going to be right. So it's just like with LeBron. It's been a really strange season. Not coincidentally, he came back from injury when everybody was talking about everybody else. Not coincidentally, they put himself in the conversation when everybody was talking about other things. Later in the podcast, we'll get to the week and the month and the season that he's had, but it just gets to a point. This is the nature where these guys are going to be on the pedestal, and it's not going to be forever, even with the all-time greats, which Tom Brady and LeBron James are. Right?
Yeah. No, they both are. I think the one other thing about the Super Bowl, and I'll give McDaniels this, he went against one of the all-time great defensive coordinators, and if Wade Phillips had the right game plan, he had him set up perfectly. But you're right, being an all-weather team, being able to run the football, the best thing that they did, and the only touchdown drive they did, they basically, because Wade Phillips, I'm not going to say outsmarted, but his game plan was to go multiple DBs, a little bit like San Diego. But he could do that because of the forces he had in the middle, and Aaron Donald, and with the 2 guys they had in the middle, they were able to stop the run with those 2 guys and play smaller, something that San Diego tried and the Patriots killed a few weeks before. And then I'll give McDaniels credit. What they won with was something they hadn't practiced, something they hadn't done. They went to their jumbo package, and that put Gronk out on the outside. They had 2 tight ends. And for all the sexiness of 3 wides and 4 wides and RPOs and all that other stuff, he basically ran an offense that he ran for his dad at Canton McKinley 20 years ago, 25 years ago, and that's what won the Super Bowl. And I think as fans, you can get excited about a lot of things, but until you have the versatility and the wherewithal to have coaches that realize those type of things and are able to scrap the playbook and scrap whatever they came to and put together what fits your offense or your defense best, to me, this Super Bowl win for New England is the most team. Now, and I can go back to the first couple that they won because obviously Tom Brady wasn't Tom Brady at the time, and they didn't have star. I mean, you really look back at those teams from way back when, Deion Branch and guys like that, not beating them up. They didn't even have.
Oh, you're being
back
honest about it, sure.
Yeah. I mean, but really, to me, this is this Super Bowl win for New England. I give them a ton of respect for because it totally took a whole coaching staff and 53 men on the roster, and for them to use them the right way, and it kind of works towards the genius of Bill Belichick and understanding this league. I don't know. Did you see there's a video that was floating around? I haven't watched a lot of NFL Network this week or NFL Films, but there's a video floating around of Bill Belichick, like in the beginning of the game last week, and he's searching for McVay, like on the sideline. Like he wants
fascinating,
to see
isn't it?
what McVay. Yeah, and I'm not here to call people cheaters or anything else. Hell, I know Terry Francona has come to me before looking for certain managers, and I knew it was nothing but he just went. And it wasn't like this. To me, it just was eye-opening that he wanted to know where the other head coach was when they were calling plays, especially with the history that Bill Belichick has, and with the genius that comes along with him. Maybe it's he likes to stare an opponent in the eye, or maybe he had something that he needed to know. I think we'll never know, but to me, that's fascinating video to get inside the mind of Bill Belichick.
Well, that's just them, isn't it? You know, whether they're cheating or not, whether they really saw something or not, like that's they play this mind game, and they've the culture is one thing, but the preparation gets to the point where they just consume their players with every detail of what the other team is doing, right? And consume their coaches with every detail. And it takes forever to do it, and you have to be ultra prepared and know what you're looking for and know how to exploit it for that to matter. But yeah, that is super fascinating video. One Browns note, since we do talk here, not really a note, but I think an issue that John Dorsey faces when you talk about that is when you look at the regular season, and if you think your offense is going to be certainly Nick Chubb's going to be a part of it, but if you think it's going to be the kind of offense that can score with the big boys and win enough games to get in, really over the course of the year, you play the Ravens and Lamar Jackson, and you got to stop the run then.
Yeah.
And we saw in Week 17, the Browns were down some bodies, specifically at linebacker, and they really struggled. But other than that, you don't need to do that. But then when you think about January, and you think about where you might have to play and who you might have to play and how those games often go, not always, there's still room for a 45-42 playoff game, and we've seen it. Hell, we saw it. Patriots-Chiefs became that even as it started out a grinder.
Right.
So these are decisions you have to make, and you see what goes into this, guys. And, I mean, the Patriots, this is this legacy, this dynasty, this run, in a league that's so competitive and where the line is so fine and there's so many good teams that aren't good enough to be healthy, to have the guys to adapt, to go on the road as they did this year, to play a hot team, to play a sexy team, to do all these things the way they've done. It's just phenomenal because it is so hard to have your guys. It is so hard to be adaptable and have everything go your way at the right time, and they've continually done it. And when they get in the tournament, everybody else, it didn't go through Foxborough this year, but they won the trophy. And a year after they got beat in an all-time Super Bowl shootout, they won an all-time ugly Super Bowl game that I'm glad is over. The NFL is glad is over, and whatever. We'll quit talking about it. But, man, just hats off to them for this incredible run of success.
I didn't hate that game, though. I know, and maybe it's because it was 80 degrees where I was at, and I had pina coladas and been out in the sun all day long. I know I'm different. Offense is sexy, and I get it, but to me, the chess match of two teams totally not being able to move the football on each other, that's just as fascinating to me. And I mean, I'm old. I'm not like everybody else. I don't play video games anymore. I didn't have a problem.
You don't want to talk about video games on the podcast?
No, I don't. Don't get me started. Zach, I like everybody. Like Dustin Fox had his best tweet ever, and he's gonna go on the Nick Camino part of this podcast where that probably should be his last tweet. You tweet anything anymore, and somebody's gonna hate it. And he said this, and it's perfect. Like okay, he liked the halftime show. I didn't care. I went and put my kids to bed and barely caught any of it. I saw some white dude with a bunch of tattoos. Congrats, Adam Levine or whatever his name is. But it seems like it, and I'm not trying to get on a soapbox, but it just seems like people would rather bitch and complain on social media or anywhere else than just take life in for what it is. Every halftime show isn't made for you. Sorry they didn't put your three favorite artists up there. Every Super Bowl game is not set up to go the way you think it goes. To me, that's the beauty of the game. That's the beauty of any game that we like. I'm gonna go to a college basketball game tonight, Akron and Kent. I haven't gone to an Akron and Kent basketball game probably in 15 years. 12. I used to go to all of them probably for the first 20 some years of my life. I didn't miss one. Dang near, and I'm going tonight. I don't know what to expect. It's MAC basketball. I don't know either team like I used to know But I like watching competition. I like coaches kind of figuring out how to dissect another team. I don't know why. So if the game would have been 31-28, that would have been a better game to everyone, I guess. But to me, defensively, watching two offenses that scored at will throughout the season and having two defensive coordinators be able to coordinate and figure out how to slow both down, that's fascinating to me. I don't get why. I don't know. Maybe we grew up in a different generation, Zach, and maybe it's from all the social media attacks. Sure, would I like, do you want the punter to be the sexiest player of the game? No. But I also did sideline during the Eric Mangini year, and I know ugly football when I see it. That wasn't
it. Sure, but let's be honest, and I want to talk about Jared Goff, and then that's the last thing I want. There's no sense in replaying the Super Bowl.
No.
He's young. He's not perfect. He's got a ton of football in front of him. He's got a guy who's still a great coach with him. He's surrounded by great players. I think the Todd Gurley thing is one of the great mysteries and probably the biggest thing anybody in sports could uncover of what actually was going on. Was it mental? Was it physical? Was there a falling out? Does he not love football anymore? Like, what the I don't know. But it's not just the trophy or Jordan Face Society, and it's not just on Jared Goff, but it is that, Dre. And I would say that Jared Goff and Sean McVay will have lots of chances to get back to Super Bowls. I will say they have lots of chances to redeem themselves. But that was an all-time stinker in the all-time game at a time where there was all-time hype around it, right? Some you can't control, some deserve because this offense was supposed to be so varied and so electric. And they couldn't even get simple plays to open up anything.
Yes. But you know what? It's funny you say that. I'm glad you said that. Because, like you said, we don't have to kill the Super Bowl, but I'm glad you said that. If anybody really watched football for the last 2.5 months, month and a half, that Rams offense hasn't been the same since Cooper Kupp left. And I've said this on this podcast a million times. That offense was not that good over the last month of the season until C.J. Anderson came along. Jared Goff had some great games, but I can think of 3 games off the top of my head where he didn't look great, and all 3 he got the crap beat out of him. The Chicago Bears did it to him, the Philadelphia Eagles beat him, and New England. When he got hit, and the offense isn't as variable, it doesn't have the variables that we make it out to be, even though everybody blew Sean McVay and said he was the best thing coming. And he's at 33 years old, he's phenomenal. And that's the hard part about doing things like this is because, as you said, in our society, if I mention 3 negative things about you, people run with, oh, he's talking shit about Zach. When in reality, I'm just having a conversation. We all have flaws in our game and who we are as people. The Rams were not a great offense for the last month and a half of the season. And when you give somebody like Bill Belichick a chance to look at when they were really great, when they were really multiple, when they were able to have a third down, when they had their own Edelman, that offense was completely different. When whatever is going on with their tailback, who's one of the best running backs in all of football, they were different. When he stopped playing the way he stopped playing and when Kupp went down, that offense was never the same. New Orleans, I will continue to say, go look at the numbers, people. The last month of the season, New Orleans only averaged about 18, 19 points a game. They weren't the multiple offense that they were because people realized if you took away the one wide receiver that could get open every play, and he still caught 190 balls or whatever, I'm exaggerating, but that's how football works. Kansas City's offense, not the same. After the running back that gets caught kicking a girl downtown Cleveland. It is hard. Here's the one thing, and this is for Browns fans. Sustaining a high octane offense for 17 weeks, 18, 19 weeks is damn near impossible.
Sure.
Because of injuries, because coaches see things that you do. The Browns had a hell of a run in the second half of the season for 2 reasons. One, and I'll marry these 2, Freddie Kitchens and Baker Mayfield were on an incredible run. And they didn't get a lot of injuries to that offense. They got Hollywood back halfway through. And they went on a run, and they had people on their heels. Is that sustainable? And I'm not saying this to kill season ticket sales. I'm not doing that at all. And I got to say, after being at the sports convention the other night, it was actually kind of cool being around some Browns people that share what I'm getting ready to say as well. Yes, everything went well. Yes, you have the quarterback. Yes, you think you have the head coach. Things are going to be a little different now when people see and know what you do, though. how you rebound and how you bounce back from teams knowing what your bread and butter plays are, knowing where Baker likes to throw the ball. There's going to be some hiccups down the road as this thing keeps going, because as you just said, go read Sports Illustrated or whatever you like, whatever publication you like to read at the midseason point. Jared Goff is already getting bronze to go to Canton. Like seriously, their offense was the best. Sean McVay was suddenly the coach everyone had to have. And because of one bad game in the last game of the season, now people want to question that. And that's unfair. They did a great job in getting where they were at. 2 years ago, they were one of the worst teams in football. Sean McVay has done an incredible job with a young quarterback that still has flaws. And the job of these great coaches around the league is to find the flaws of opposing players. And 9 times out of 10, you know this as well as I do, Zach, they find those flaws that those players have. And when you get in the big game, it becomes magnified. Is Jared Goff my favorite quarterback out there? No. But when he has time, he's got incredible touch, and he's got an incredible arm. And he's still going to be a Pro Bowler or All-Pro damn near next year when they can get a better, when their right tackle's a little bit better and maybe a better guard. But this is how it works, people. You're not going to score 45 points for 18 weeks. It's impossible. It's not.
I completely agree. I completely agree with that. And along the lines of the Goff conversation, that's kind of where I was going. Go back to week 13, week 12, whatever, started to get cold. They went to Chicago on a Sunday night. They got their ass kicked, right? And over the scope of the season, whatever, that happens. It was Chicago's biggest game. It was a cross-country trip into cold weather. And that was about the second or third week that they didn't have Cup, so they had a lot to figure out, right? So that was a bump in the road. They made the Super Bowl. I just liken that Super Bowl stinker, and I don't think this is getting too far ahead. I liken that Super Bowl stinker to Michigan getting the 62 laid on them by Ohio State and then getting followed up by getting beat by a bad team in the bowl game. I just think it was so bad that it's the kind of thing that sticks with you. And it never matters what anybody says on the outside. And as you just eloquently, for lack of a better word, laid out, in the NFL, nobody goes 16-0. The goal is not to go 16-0. And you see from the Patriots every stinking year, it's about riding the wave and figuring out what works week to week. I just think that the next time that happens, next year, Jay, when they go through that inevitable slump or they light up two teams and then they play a good defense and someone catches them, I'm not sure that the whole doubt doesn't creep in, starting with Jared Goff, permeating through the whole organization.
That's a good point.
And that lays him down. Well, and at a time, when he's just going forward, I just think when it happens on that stage, it's so bad.
Yeah. I understand that. Here's the other thing that I would say, and I thought this before the game. Sean McVay is great at showing the same. I think you and I talked about this on our Super Bowl preview. They come out in 31 package almost 90% of the time. And that's the most out of anyone in the NFL. And I remember thinking, if there's one team you don't want to look the same every play before, it's against New England, right? Mm-hmm. And I think finally about the third quarter, I start saying, put him in the shotgun. Like if you go off, McVay doesn't use the shotgun very often. They come out usually with one tailback, 3 wide receivers, and a tight end. That is their base. They use it, and when they've got the receivers rocking and rolling with Cooks on the outside and their guy and Kupp, they're hard to defend because you can't put the guy in the box. Can't put the safety in the box with Kupp because Kupp was fast enough, and able to get in and out. By keeping that safety way back, and Gurley suddenly is the most explosive running back in the NFL because he's faster than any linebacker and bigger than any safety that you put in the box anyway. And suddenly when they couldn't be in that, and when they didn't have the personnel to run that, to me, that's where Bill Belichick is phenomenal. You're right. Everyone is going to put this on Jared Goff, the pressure of the offseason. The word is he can't deal with pressure. You hit him, he's not going to play well. That is what's going to be said. My thing is, okay, Sean McVay, you've shown that you can coach. But the great coaches don't use anything 90% of the time, right? Like they know,
sure.
They can say, okay, that worked. And what works off of it is they use that speed motion and they play action. They play action more than anybody else. And I think I want to say Goff completed 70-some% of his passes off play action, most of the NFL last year. All those numbers are awesome, and it worked for them for 15 weeks. But when you can't run the football and you're not running off first down and you're not getting first downs, The play action fake means nothing, and Browns fans should know that better than anyone else, because it was nothing worse than watching Charlie Fry try to fake it to Reuben Drones, and everybody in the world knew he wasn't going nowhere, and they still killed him. They don't respect that. It doesn't work. So I would say, yes, Zach, I'm riding with you. Goff is going to have the pressure of having to show that he can overcome pressure and he can win a big game. But I will take it a step further and say the guy that he's married to, the guy that he's the co-pilot for him, McVay, really good coach, going to have to get some more innovation to his offense, because his offense was not very innovative in the biggest game he ever coached.
Right. That's going to be hard. Now let's get to the league, where very little that happens in the actual games matters until late April. That is the NBA. This was a week like no other. In the NBA, there was a lot of activity. For the first time in a long time, the Eastern Conference playoffs are going to be must-see television. We got a bunch of teams loading up, trying to be the team that gets beat in 5 by the Warriors, maybe 5. You have the Warriors now getting Kevin Durant throwing all-time fits and majoring in the minor. Yeah, but they're also on the court hitting a groove as DeMarcus gets confident and they start to move out of their pissiness and board season and into looking ahead mode. They're a freaking machine. But a few things happened. A few things didn't happen. We don't need to regurgitate exactly what happened with Anthony Davis, with Clutch Sports, with LeBron and the Lakers. But we know a trade wasn't made. We know the Pelicans baited the Lakers into basically offering up every movable and semi-decent / movable asset they had. The Pelicans telling them that's not enough. The Pelicans choosing to hold on to Anthony Davis and trade him this summer. I'm going to start with this part of it, though, and then we'll go backwards. In the present, where they're apparently going to let him play, I completely disagree with it. And although I understand that they have season ticket holders and sponsors and that he's healthy and that he's under contract, he has told them he doesn't want to be there. He's told them he doesn't want to be a part of the future. And the way I would handle it is I would put the paperwork on his locker chair and I would send a picture of it to his agent and I would say, here's the Mega Max, and when you want to sign it and be a Pelican, we will play you. And in the meantime, we will not play you, because if you think you're too good for this team, then this team will go on and do what's best for it, which would be to continue to lose and lose and lose and lose and not risk this asset getting injured.
Time out. I like where you're going, but I'm on the other side. And I'm going to be old school with this. You signed a bleeping contract. Take your ass to work. Let's stop all this petty bullshit. Let's stop thinking that we're bigger than everybody else. I love the players have I don't mind the players have the sources that they have. What Clutch Sports tried to pull, in my eyes, is no different than what's been going on from the history of sports. This is how trades have always worked. The difference is we have social media and we have players and we have agents and we have people within the media that don't know how to shut the fuck up and keep some things inside, because everything's not for our business and for us to take in. The Pelicans, I will remind you, when I say this, maybe you realize this already or maybe you don't, they're getting run by Mickey Loomis. They're getting run by football people. The man that owned the team is no longer alive, and basically Mickey Loomis is the GM of both the basketball team and the football team, if not president. Yeah, there's a GM for the Pelicans, but he has no pull over Mickey Loomis. And Mickey Loomis ran this like he would a football trade. He was never going to trade Anthony Davis. He never had any. He basically played them like a flute. God bless him. Magic Johnson should have known better. Rob Pelinka should have known better, considering he's an agent. Was his last job before he was the president of the LA Lakers. Dude, you signed a contract. You're healthy. Go play. Like, at the end of it, you go play. I don't give a shit that you don't want to be here. Do you know how many of us wake up and go to jobs we don't want to go to? Lord knows I've done it, and I'm lucky enough that I'm finally at a point in my life where I'm not. But it's part of life. And Anthony Davis doesn't want to come off as a bad guy. Anthony Davis wants to be a winner, and I don't think he's a bad guy. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to be a winner. But there's a way you go about doing it. There's a way you go about carrying yourself. There's a way you go about being a professional. Amateur shit is what they're doing right now. You know what would happen if you were in a college? If you would have pulled this shit in Kentucky, they would have pulled a scholarship and he wouldn't have played. He would have never got to the NBA. He had to go over.
He already had the cash in the shoebox. He didn't care about the scholarship.
Right. But to me, I know on one hand, I'm like, but it's like, dude, you got a year and a half left in your contract. Go play, Anthony Davis. You're going to get hurt in 5-6 games anyway because that's been your MO. That's the other thing. When they kept putting all this out there, I was like, you really want to trade half your roster for a guy that can't stay healthy 20 games in a row? And I have nothing against Anthony Davis. And once again, it's going to come off as hater. And I'm not a hater. I'm just being realistic. Give me a 25, 30-game spread where he's played in every game and not been hurt, and I'll take back my statement. Like, just go play, man. Stop all this bullshit. The team shouldn't have to beg you or shouldn't have to figure it out. Go play. That's your job. That's what you do. You make a lot of money. You have the right, when your contract is up, to go play anywhere you want. You did do the right thing in a team focus of saying, I'm not going to re-sign with you guys. You can put that contract there all you want. I'm not going to re-sign it. He has the right to do that. And the team has the right to trade him wherever the hell they want to trade him. I am so sick of how we've made this into and I heard LeBron say, and LeBron made a good point on the IG post, but he got no business telling anybody how the league should and shouldn't work because the league's never worked that way for him one way or the other either. But at the end of the day, Anthony Davis, go do your job. It's that simple.
Well, I'm not disagreeing with any of that, but what do the Pelicans have to gain by playing him?
Well, like you said, they got a fan. Well, let's get back to what this really is. It's an entertainment business. And they drafted him and they've signed him to be a part of their entertainment package, just like they're Ahmad Crump, just like their cheerleaders, just like everyone else. Part of him is they sell tickets upon his talent and upon what he is. It'd be like going to see the movie Creed and Michael B. Jordan don't show up because he don't want, and that happens in movies, but the movie ain't going to sell nearly as well. He is signed to go do a job. Here's the thing I'll say for the Pelicans. And this reminds me a little bit of the LeBron after the first 7 years with the Cavs. You win the lottery of getting one of these genetic freaks. That's not the end of the job. Just like everybody's pinning right now for the Cavaliers to get the number 1 pick and get Zion. That's just the beginning of the journey. If you don't piece together the right people around that superstar, then you just wasted all those losses and you're wasting your time. What is the best thing New Orleans has done? And this is where I can see from Anthony Davis' side. What has New Orleans put around Anthony Davis in the 7 years he's been there to make him want to stay?
Still haven't answered why the Pelicans can benefit 1 ounce from putting him out there.
Because that's how you build a team. That's how teams are built.
But he's told them that he doesn't want to be there, that they're not good enough for him.
Have you ever worked? He never said they weren't good enough. He said he wants to win. Have you ever gone to a job that you didn't want to go to? And then you signed up and you agreed to be there?
Yeah.
That's how life works.
I worked for Butch Davis singing for Eric Mangini.
Right. I was there. I know. I saw it. I was there. Because that's his job. His job is to play basketball, not to let Rich Paul run around and tell him he don't like the program and he don't want to be the bad guy. They signed him up. And you know what? I will take something back. They did sign Boogie Cousins. They did to make the move for Boogie, which was goofy and weird, and it could have worked, but he got hurt. His job is to play basketball. Their job is to put the best team they have out there. That's the other problem we got. All these basketball teams not trying to win is garbage. Silver's got to do something. I heard Charles Barkley say it last night. Make everybody have 1 ball in the hopper and see what changes. I want competition. I feel like
I like that.
Right now.
I like that. But now that I've won this argument, let's move on to this one.
No, his job is to play basketball. You don't let a guy just sit there and not play. I want my investment. They're giving him $13, $14 million a week. They deserve to get their money's worth.
Okay, well, the best thing for them, business over basketball, is for him to not play. I'm convinced of that.
So why haven't played the games? Just wrap it up.
Well, you can ask that about 26 franchises right now. This is the state of the NBA. I'm trying to live in the present, in the real world.
Well, the real world is you go earn your money still. Most places still work that way.
All right, well, what we're talking about leads me to my next point. We know LeBron is special. He's special here for various reasons on and off the basketball court. Right now, he's the greatest player in the world, and he's got a case to be the greatest of all time, which will never be solved or will be solved way down the road.
I thought about this last night. You can keep going. Is he the greatest right now at this moment in time?
I would say yes, but I don't know that that anybody could make a case that stands up in the court of law one way or the other. But I would say yes.
Okay. Keep going.
So here's what I want to say. And he's earned the right to do this, to have the opinions that he has, to have the things that he has. He's certainly, 3 times has earned the right to the free market and has to choose what he's, the way he's gone about it, what's happened, and all of that stuff. Okay, but I think he needs to either be a basketball player or be an agent. This trying to be both is a bad. It puts him in a bad spot, and we know that he comes off as an idiot every time he's backed into a corner. It puts the league, the Lakers, all involved into a bad spot. His teammates into a bad spot, which he clearly doesn't give a shit about, which is a bad look. But I just think, LeBron, you either got to be a player or you got to be an agent, because trying to be both ain't working, period.
Well, that's not going to happen. He's been his whole career. Great. Yeah, okay. But why would he stop now? And everything that's pretty much happened in his life tells him the opposite. Say what you will. No, he's not been a great GM. But he's found a way to make 8 NBA finals and have a lot of set in a row and have a ton of say in the teams that were put together. So why the hell do we think suddenly he's going to change and not become more of a monster when it comes to these things? It's unrealistic to think that he's going to be any way different. He stepped, like I heard on the Gerard Cherry and I can't think of the name of their show. But they had a good question the other day, and they were going back and forth with him and Emmett. And they were going back and forth with LeBron. And I texted both of them and said, it's a great topic, because I don't think there's a right answer. But the topic that they had was, is LeBron James a good or bad teammate? And I chuckled because, and like Emmett was fighting that he was good. Gerard was saying he was bad. And I agree with both of them. He's not a great teammate, but there's about 18 guys that swear by him and will swear by him until the day they die. And you could name them off. I mean, look at the contracts some of these guys have gotten from being a part of his teams and being on the championships. And Jason Whitlock is one of the biggest idiots of all time, and we knew it when he keeps wanting to bring up his single child and everything else. But there is something to him being 16 years old, being crowned a king, and no one ever really saying no to him. And now he's at an age where maybe athletically he's not the same, but he's got more power than he's ever had to do with it. And we've talked about this. Like, this is something that we've always talked about. No one man should have all the power. Having too much power, it should have all that power. It's true. Because at some point in time, you don't see anything you're doing wrong, because no one's ever told you you've done wrong. And all the moves you've made have led to getting NBA finals, getting MVPs, getting all-time contracts, getting movie deals, I think you can get blinded by your success and not realize that you do some things that are detrimental to you and to your teams. And Team LeBron is not always good for Team Laker or Team Cav or Team Heat, right? Mm-hmm. Team LeBron is strong, and Team LeBron gonna be around a lot longer than Team Lakers. Magic, this is what you guys asked for. Was everything perfect in Cleveland, and did Dan do everything correct? Absolutely not. But Team LeBron pushes a lot of buttons, and I know a lot of people that work with the Cavs, and they're hating this season. But a lot of them are telling me, man, they're having the best January they've had and best February they've had in years. That's a direct quote, and it's not from Sabo, so it's not Sabo. But I've had people that work up pretty high in management and I work around the Cavaliers say to me, yeah, we hate this losing. Yeah, this isn't fun. But damn, it's nice not to have all the drama that we've had to deal with in January and February. Well, what happened over the last 2 weeks is not news to Zach Jackson. It's not news to Andre. It's not news to most of you guys that are listening. This is where Grandpa LeBron gets grumpy in January. He don't like bad weather. He don't like his teammates. This is every year. This is what he does. So, congrats, Lakers. Enjoy.
Well, right. I agree. He's all of those things, and he's been those things. And, he's not used to being the bad guy more than anything else.
No.
And you saw how miserable he was in his first year in Miami when he was the bad guy. And look, my point of saying you can't be both is that he went to the Lakers for non-basketball reasons. That was his right. That was his family's right. This is what he wants to do. But then to think you'd come in there and call all the basketball shots and do this a certain way and have it work out, I guess what aggravates me more than anything is the quotes from him and from Rich. I ain't got nothing to prove. That's exactly right, LeBron. You don't.
So
quit fucking saying it all the time, man. It's just tiring.
Exactly. Right. It's like the beautiful girl. It's like the hottest girl in class telling you that she's hot.
Yes.
We know.
Yes.
Right. It's just unbecoming of you. It's unbecoming.
Yes.
Stop.
I know. And you're right. For almost 20 years now, he has lived his life under an incredible spotlight. And I will always say that for his greatness in court vision and in efficiency and in accomplishment and in all of these things, perhaps his greatest accomplishment is this incredible hype that was not his fault and him living up to or surpassing all of it, right? And we know there have been very few public missteps along the way of a very public life. There are very few things that you could sit here and say, man, LeBron James blew this. LeBron James didn't deliver in this. LeBron James could do more in this, in basketball, in life, in charity, and whatever. But right now, like what happened the last 2 weeks with the Lakers is on LeBron James and Rich Paul. They got nobody but themselves to blame. And right now, his basketball career is at a spot. It doesn't tarnish anything that he's done, but his basketball career, by his choice, is not where it was or could be. And, you know, part of that's inevitable, but a lot of it, Dre, is just his own doing. And I just am so tired of the trying to be a basketball player and trying to be an agent and trying to be a GM, specifically the first two, because you can't be more than one at a time. You just can't.
But he has been. He has been.
I know.
You know the word you left out that he sees himself as? An entrepreneur. You're right. What you're saying is correct for 98% of the population, right? But this kid has done it, whether it be his AAU team at 17, 18, 19 years old, whether it be the Cleveland Cavaliers for his first 7 years. He wasn't allowed to do it in Miami and went through, 3 finals, 4 finals, 1, 2. I think the story of LeBron is it's the perfect story because there's nothing perfect about any one individual. No matter how blessed you are, how much God has given you in athletic ability or in brain or whatever else, no one is perfect. And what's happening right now, and it's going to happen more. I texted you this the other day. He's getting ready to hit a phase of life that no one has ever prepared him for. I remember watching the end of Michael Jordan's career, and I'm not saying this is the end of LeBron's career. I'm not trying to end the story right now, but we know what's undefeated, and it's coming. And he played unbelievable last night. But being relevant in the way that a Michael Jordan was relevant to how Michael Jordan is relevant today, and you've been around athletes, I've been around athletes, it's not the game that they miss. They miss the camaraderie of the locker room. They miss how can you not have an addiction to the spotlight when the spotlight's been all you've known for 20 years? I mean, look at what happens to most kid stars, whether it be Michael Jackson, Gary Coleman. You know, most kid stars, they never can live up to that again, or they never have that again. And it's a hard life for them to go back to being, quote unquote, normal. We've watched it with Jordan. We're going to watch it with LeBron. You watch it with star athletes all the time. The hardest thing is accepting that I'm no longer the most important individual on this planet. You never were, but you've been treated that way. I think the next couple of years are going to be unbelievable to watch what LeBron goes through. And I'm asking you this question because for the first time in 15 years, I'm debating. I think he's the best player in the world, but I wouldn't be afraid to talk about the guy that he had to draft against in the All-Star game yesterday, or even Kevin Durant. Now, let me say this on Kevin Durant, because I don't know where we're at time-wise for you, but I gotta put this in there. Kevin Durant, I've told you and I've told Sabo, and I think I've said on this podcast, he's one of the most fascinating guys in the world to me. I love watching him play basketball. I love that he has flaws, and he doesn't cover them up, and he doesn't let the PR. He doesn't let Rich Paul cover up his flaws. He's an open book of just like the other day when he goes off. Some of what he was saying was true, but he's like, you can't say all this stuff. You can't tell people to grow up when 6 months ago you had a fake Instagram page and a fake Twitter page going at kids in high school. His maturity or lack of, I don't even want to say maturity. I just think it's growing up in the spotlight. It shows how hard it is to grow up in the spotlight, right? Mm-hmm. Like this, it shows Kevin Durant is a flawed individual, but I like him. I know he has. I like watching him play, and I like that he's willing to put himself completely out there and sometimes be a complete dick as he tries to realize and figure out how life goes. He said something, and when I heard him go off the other day, it goes back to what he said before Christmas that pissed LeBron off. Remember when he pissed LeBron off because basically he said all those people around LeBron, it's toxic being around LeBron and everything else that comes with him. And I get what he was trying to say, and I'm not going to say he was misquoted or whatever else he said. Look at what just happened Kevin Durant, what he said came true over the last month, right? that LeBron says one little thing or his agent say something and it becomes toxic being around the whole team that he's around. Kevin Durant was right. But Kevin Durant doesn't realize the power of his words does the same exact thing, or the lack. Like, we all thought Golden State was over when him and Draymond, the donkey, got into it. And it took Curry's biggest move this year is putting that team back together. What it kills me is this, and this exemplifies this whole past week of the NBA. But it's why the NBA is more popular than it's ever been before. Golden State had one of the best basketball quarters I've ever seen in my 40 years on this earth on Tuesday night. I don't know if you're Wednesday night. I don't know if you saw it, Zach. I don't know how many people on this podcast or listening to this podcast saw it. But at one time, they hit 21 of 22 shots in the third quarter of a game against the San Antonio Spurs on Wednesday night. It was phenomenal basketball because of how they moved the ball. It was basketball pornography, as Terry Francona says to me all the time. It was perfect. The ball moved. It just got to people. Defense. You could tell as they kept hitting shots defensively, the energy came up. And it wasn't like they just rode five guys. Steve Kerr was rotating guys in and out, and they weren't missing a shot. It was the greatest basketball I had seen. It was Nirvana for like 15 minutes. It was unbelievable watching them move the ball and make shot after shot after shot after shot after shot after shot. It was phenomenal. But you know what? When you woke up Thursday, if you weren't up late watching that game, did anybody mention one of the best third quarters? I think they scored 52 points in the quarter or whatever else. Nobody mentioned that third quarter. It was against San Antonio, by the way. It was against a well-coached team. Nobody woke up Thursday morning talking about the great basketball they saw. All everybody wanted to talk about was Kevin Durant going off for 5 minutes because he was pissed off about a story that was written about him that didn't have a quote from him. And nothing against Ethan Strauss. I don't know him. I think he's a good writer. I don't know him personally, so I wanted to tackle him. I haven't even read the story. And you're a writer, so you can defend it. You do what you want. If you're going to write about somebody long term and about what they may or may not do, it would be smart to get a quote from them. I'm not condoning what KD did, but it sucks that the story Thursday morning was not this unbelievable quarter of basketball the Golden State Warriors had and how well they're playing. It was about a 2-minute post-game press conference where a player acted like a 6-year-old.
Was it the player's fault, though? That's yeah.
We could do a whole podcast on that.
We could do a whole new podcast on that. And
right.
I think maybe in a week and a half we will because NBA All-Stars next weekend, right?
Right.
So in a league where business takes precedence over basketball for the entirety of the regular season, and then even when the playoffs start, everybody knows that nobody can win. The team that's going to win again, right? Then, of course, the player who's the second best in the world or the best in the world or the fourth best in the world, of course, his impending free agency, considering his last free agency, he went to the best team in the world. Of course, that's going to be the story. So Kevin Durant can deal with it.
Right. But you're right. Everything he's done in his life makes that story a story. Mm-hmm. I get it. That's why I wouldn't kill the author. You're right. He left. He had the best team in basketball down. And after they came back and beat them in the Western Conference Finals, after they lost in the finals to the Cavs, he went and signed with them. So absolutely, what he's going to do over the next 6 months is a story. I don't disagree. I keep going to, but you want to put these guys in the same boat as everyone else. They're not. They live in a fantasy world, and they can get away with things. And I don't know whose fault it is, but here's a basketball question I have to ask you. What happened during the trade deadline? Throw out all the bunk with what happened with AD and the Lakers. The best thing LeBron did in the last 8 months? I mean, he's done open up the school was pretty big, and I'm sure Savannah's got something nice for him to say, and somebody else probably around him, his kids probably. Best thing he did is he made the East open. Look at the moves that were made in the East by the Bucks. And look, we're 50 minutes into a podcast. We probably talked about the NBA for 25. And the East is in one of the best places it's been in so long. Look at what Philadelphia, Milwaukee did over the last week. Those teams, Toronto, look what Toronto did. Toronto doesn't even look like Toronto from 2 years ago.
No, LeBron ended them himself.
Yeah,
yes.
Right. But seriously, look at the lineup Philadelphia is going to be able to roll out there when it's time. Milwaukee, I love getting to do Mirotic. I love them getting him because they need somebody to spread the floor, and he keeps them long and lengthy. They're going to be a tough out. And, yes, you're right. Golden State's going to win in 5 games at minimum. But damn it, the Eastern Conference Finals are going to be fun to watch this year, especially after the second round. The second round on, it's going to be a toss-up. And I didn't even mention Boston, who's finally hot and finally playing the right way. But they got dingback Kyrie as one of their leaders, so you don't know who's going to show up from day to day. But Kyrie has shown in the playoffs he may not talk to any of his teammates for the whole month, but he'll show up at 7 o'clock. So that Boston has that going for him.
Yeah.
It's all true. Before we get out of here, I got to tell a story. But go ahead and say what you got to say.
Okay. Well, Kyrie's such a weirdo, for one. And we got time to talk about it because July 1st is a long time from now. And this free agency is going to be very interesting. A couple thoughts as we get out of here. The other day on Facebook.com/A to Z podcast, I posted an article which Pete Thamel from Yahoo reached out to a whole bunch of NBA folks for opinions on Zion. They played Virginia, 6 o'clock Saturday night. Get to a TV, watch that game. I have questions about Zion as an NBA player, and he obviously is going to be at a time when players have more power and star power than ever. He obviously is going to light Summer League and some bad franchise on fire. I have questions about him long term. Go to Facebook.com/A to Z podcast and read that. We'll be talking more about that. My second thought, I don't know. I kind of lost track.
Give me your biggest concern about him long term as a player.
Well, there's two, and they're equal. One, I mean, does he really make jump shots? And in today's NBA, you have to. And two,
true.
Like it's not just that he's bouncing off these little dudes, because LeBron did the same. I mean, all these freaks do that. They bounce off of mere mortals. But his body like this at 19 years old, like long term, 82 games. Staying skinny and having the explosion. I worry about him being a superstar player. I really do. I think he's a unique player, and at a unique time he can help, but I'm not sure any idea what he's going to look like body-wise as an elite athlete in 25. I really don't.
Nobody knows that answer. Let me answer for number one. And you know this. Questioning a guy whether he'll be able to shoot at 18, 19, 20 years old usually will get us in trouble. Yeah, I mean, there's only so many pure shooters. And you know this and I know. There's only so many guys that are born shooters. Usually, though, when LeBron couldn't shoot at 20, Magic Johnson couldn't shoot at 20, and I'm just using the high-end players.
No, you're right. You're right.
Yeah. I think developing a jump shot, especially when he no longer has to play school, he can play basketball.
Oh yeah, I mean he's in some advanced calculus shit at Duke right now as we speak. They haven't gone to Virginia yet because Zion had to take his biology test. Get the fuck out of here.
Well, you know what I mean. When you can play basketball year round and shoot, I wouldn't worry about that. The other thing is you used a special word when saying what you're worried about, and I think we both know this. With unique people, you just get out of the way and let unique be unique. I mean, yes, his body is – you're going to question it, but here's the thing. Sean Kemp at this – and I'm not saying he's Sean Kemp, but this is only – I'll go along with this analysis. Sean Kemp at this age is one of the most spectacular athletes of all time as well. Couldn't shoot and really didn't have much basketball game. And he was able to use his unique athleticism and height until he was about 26 years old. And it helped the Seattle Supersonics get to the NBA Finals. And the Finals, it was one of the best ones that Jordan actually played in. And they lost with him and Gary Payton, him just catching lobs and intimidating the shit out of people. Now, Zion's not as tall as Sean Kemp, and I'm not saying this is the perfect analysis. Sean Kemp, for all the jokes that we want to make about him, and hell, he may be my daddy or your daddy that's listening. But he found a way when he got fat and became fat Sean Kemp in that 6'10", 6'11", couldn't grab the rim. It was one of the best players in the Cavs' history. When he got fat and was 300 pounds and they just threw the ball down to him, and he learned a post game. I'm using him as an example. I'm trying to think of the big power forward from Wake Forest around that same time zone that was left-handed, and he was huge, but he was built. I guess here's what I would say. Zion is an incredible athlete and unique. He's a unicorn. Is he better than Barrett? Is he better than his other teammates? I don't know. But you want to fill your seats up? You want people to come to the games next year? You want people to come to the games in 2020?
No one would deny that. And he is a unicorn, and he has handled the spotlight and all of this stuff incredibly well, and he will energize some franchise. I hope it's in Cleveland because the Cavs need it. I'm just saying that I'm not sure that picking him number one in the summer of 2019 helps you win a title in 2022. You know,
but okay. Is there anybody in the draft that's going to do
well,
that?
No. I'm saying it's the more than kicking on him. I'm saying the reality of the matter is, like, you're almost better off just getting the guy for the name and lighting the franchise on fire, you know, for 2 years, rather than thinking you realistically can win it because there's so few teams.
Duh. The Lakers. Duh. The Lakers went for LeBron James in year 15, and they're not going to win NBA Finals. I mean,
all right, right now, if you had to put $5 on it, do the Lakers make the playoffs?
Does LeBron? My question is, does LeBron play most of the game? If LeBron plays,
that's a great question, because if it starts to look one way, he might make a decision.
And you know how I feel about that. I've let it be known that I think that if it gets ugly enough, he's gonna go on one of those sabbaticals in Miami. After that, if I had $5, I would say yes, they make it because of him. If I had $50, I would say no, they're not going to make it.
Okay.
Put it that way.
All right.
You put a dollar amount on it. 50? Nah, I wouldn't put 50 on it. 5, sure.
We're at 56 minutes, baseball minute, given the news about Frankie Lindor.
Well, I knew a little bit about this. I didn't know a lot about this. The news came out right as we were starting this podcast, and there's some people I got to talk to still. And I got a text out to him. I doubt he texts back because he changes his number every 6 months purposely so nobody can keep up with him. But I think I have the right number. I'll let you know in a couple minutes. Sucks. To me, this is the worst news of the offseason. But, hey, if he's back on April 1st, April 2nd, we'll see. What's weird to me and what I want to know more about is why calf injuries have become such a thing in baseball. We saw Donaldson deal with it, Chisenhall, now Lindor having it. It's a punch in the gut. But once again, you know me. I don't get too high or too low when the games haven't started yet. Do they need him to win? Sure. I think that's we all know that. But we'll see. I'll tell a couple of quick stories that I'll say because this is a baseball moment. Just happened on Super Bowl Sunday. I'm down in the lobby of our I shouldn't say hotel because it's better than a hotel, in the Bahamas. And I'm waiting we're getting ready to go catch this boat. And we actually saw Gilligan's Island, like where they shot Gilligan's Island, like the opening scene. They actually put us on a boat and drove us out there. So I got my kids with me or whatever else. My wife is in line to get breakfast or get coffees or whatever. And I'm literally, surprise, looking down at my phone, texting something to you or texting something to somebody else, and I almost run my head right into the shoulders of Yonder Alonso, who's holding his baby. And Yonder's like, Trey, what's up? And I'm just like, whoa. And didn't, expect to see him there at all. And we talked for a couple minutes, our families, our kids know each other's kids and whatever. They all talked for a minute. They went and did their thing on Sunday. We went and did our thing on Sunday. It was just one of those, but it was a cool moment because Yonder's a really good dude. So on Monday, after the Super Bowl, we're back at the pools, and there's like 15 million pools on this resort that we're at. But there was like an actual pool that was just for kids, where they had their own slides and water. It was awesome. Zach would have fit right in with all the little 8-year-olds and 6-year-olds. Not R. Kelly style. He's just the kids for people that are worried. So with my wife, I look over, and my wife's sitting right next to Yonder's wife or whatever, and Yonder's there, and they're holding their little baby, and we just start, and then I walk over without my shirt on, embarrassed as could be, it is what it is. It's another country, won't count. And we just start talking, and it was funny because I think people don't get this, but most of the time when you're around an athlete or somebody like that, we don't talk about their job. Like when you're friends with somebody, usually the first thing you don't talk about is your job, right? And so we BS, and then 10, 15 minutes in, our jobs came up. And he's excited about being in Chicago. He wishes he still was here in Cleveland. And he looked at me, and he looked at Jen, and he goes, the Indians are still going to be really fucking good, right? He's like, I don't know why people are so down on them. He goes, and being around that organization and being around the young kids that they have in the minors, and he goes, and that pitching staff, they still are going to be one of the best teams in baseball. And I chuckled, and I was like, no way. I was like, you got to go to Twitter and read Twitter, man. Everybody's telling me they're the worst team in baseball. And he looked at me, and he goes, who told you LeBron was going to L.A. first? Stop listening to those dumbasses on Twitter. My point of this is, it's funny when you talk to an actual athlete that plays within the league. And maybe he's wrong. But he's like, no, they're still really good. He goes, it's going to be an uphill battle. And that's the guy that's in their division that's got to play him 19 times. And he did tell me, he's like, and look, the White Sox have told us they're still going to sign a couple guys. And he's hoping one of those guys is his brother-in-law. And if it is, it can make the American League Central a little bit more enticing. I still say MLB, wake up. It's embarrassing that your two best players in free agency haven't signed, and pitchers and catchers are reporting next week. It's time for some changes in baseball. Baseball is a great sport. Baseball is a fun sport. But baseball is doing no good for themselves, and they're cutting their legs from within by figuring – you got to figure out free agency, and you got to figure a way to speed the game up, and you got to figure out the way to get kids to watch. The game is good. I'm not saying you change the game, but you need to do some different things. It's not cool that you're this late into the off season. And I mean, even think about this. I read this story, and I'll do it quickly. Think of if the Philadelphia Phillies finally signed Machado. They've already missed selling season tickets. Think about, we all know when you sign a big free agent, that usually excites the fan base, right?
Oh, I remember when the Browns signed Jeff Garcia, there was a guy driving up and down the road waving a flag. Like they were back.
Right.
Yes.
And that's Jeff Garcia, right. So imagine if you could sign Bryce Harper, what that would do to your community, what that would do to that's gone. Major League Baseball has to fix that. Last story, and I got to tell this. And I know you were at the. I shouldn't ask you this. Wednesday night. Tell everybody where you were.
The Cleveland Sports Awards.
You were in the back. We both were there.
So I was there, but I never. I was only in the media center. Right. I never was. You were out in the thing. I heard you using your white voice from over the speakers, but I never actually saw you.
That's called my getting paid voice.
Yeah, so I was in the area where they do the interviews and some of the VIPs come through, but I wasn't actually in the event. If anybody was following the event, yes, that's where I was.
Did Freddie didn't come back there, did he?
Freddie did not come back there. No, I actually ran into him in the hallway, just coincidentally / accidentally, but the Browns chose to not make Freddie or Dorsey available to the media. Only Baker was available to the media. So I can't speak for my cohorts, but I never, with the exception of that one time when I really was just looking for the restroom, ran into them.
Right.
I'm glad you brought this up, and I don't want to interrupt whatever it is that you're going to ask me, but I want to say this, and this is not to kick on the Cavs or Colin Sexton, but someone who was there told me that in the silent auction in the VIP area before the thing, they had a Baker Mayfield signed Oklahoma jersey that the bidding started at $1,000 next to a Colin Sexton signed Cavs jersey that the bidding started at $75. So that's not to kick on anybody. That's just to tell you where Baker Mayfield is right now in terms of Cleveland,
right?
And owning.
Yeah, that's not kicking on anyone. That's not kicking on anyone. That's just that's realistic. That's the truth.
Yeah.
And that's. I'm not even the person that can have this conversation. I think what they do on that day once a year is a really cool event. Maybe it's not for everyone. It is a cool event, though, I think, when you can get all the teams there and you get all the different people there, and the high school stories are good. Obviously, I'm one of the MCs for it, so it's not fair for me to go one way or the other with it. But I will tell this story to finish the night. There was a pretty prominent – I shouldn't even use the word prominent. There was a person that thought very highly of themselves that was at the show. And in the after show, it's really cool because afterwards we all kind of hang out, and I'm just hanging out with, and this is name dropping USA, and I don't do this very often, but for me, the coolest person I hung out with and had a beer with was Eric Metcalf, because Eric Metcalf was one of my favorite running backs growing up. I can look him right in the eye, so we understand each other. So I'm BSing with Eric Metcalf and Bernie was texting me before the show, and I'm like, yeah, Bernie, I know I'm here. And those are all cool things. So I'm talking to Eric Metcalf. I got to say, Raj was running the show. I don't know if he had a date or not, but he took a picture like he had one, and she actually looked like she was of age. So Raj was in his element, amongst everyone. So somehow my wife and Raj end up talking with each other, and I got pulled away by Jay Crawford and someone else and Hannah Storm. And I'm talking to Hannah Storm because she was, she came in and whatever, and she told me good job. I told her good job, and we're just talking about our careers or whatever else, different people we know. She introduces me to a neighbor and an agent, blah, blah, blah. And then a guy comes up, and he seemed elitist. And I'm telling this story, and you're going to laugh your ass off. A lot of you guys are going to laugh your ass off. But after you hear this story, don't ever do this to me. So the guy comes up, and he goes, man, and he keeps trying to jump into our conversation. And finally, I look at him, and I go, yes, what's up? And he goes, man, I got to tell you something. My kids and I, we love you. We love everything. We love what you do. And I'm like, I appreciate that very much. And he goes, I remember in game 6 of the NBA Finals, you came out there and you got that crowd so pumped up. You made the crowd go crazy.
I love this story.
It took everything in my power. Now remember the setting. It's like Hannah Storm. Bernie Kosar has gone by. Eric Metcalf is within our circle. Jay Crawford. And Jay Crawford knows, because Jay Crawford he knows what I do. They all do, but no one wanted. I didn't want to crush this guy's dreams. And he's with his wife. He'd had a good night, had a couple cocktails. And his wife kind of busted his bubble, and she's like, but isn't he the guy that they throw the Gatorade on during baseball games? Here's a picture of him and our son together. And I just said, yes. And I looked at everybody, shook their hand, and I walked away. Every chubby black dude is not the same black dude. I'm not nearly as dark as him. As a matter of fact, I'm skinnier than him. And I've never got in front of the mic and yelled, let's go Cavs. Please, before you get too excited, people, figure out who you're talking to. And I know that, and look, in Cleveland, there's only a couple black people that they let have microphones. Figure out which one you're talking to before you do something that embarrassing. Please.
I love this story. That qualifies as our American Fireworks Glory Days because I'm going to tell it forever. And I actually had a pretty good non-sports story that I was going to close with. But in addition to already being in an hour and 7, I'm not going to top that. So I'm going to save it for a different day for a good chuckle.
Dude.
Shout out
you
to
know
Scene,
how bad.
to Honeymoon Grill.
You thought you heard my white. You thought you heard my white voice during the show. You should have heard the voice I wanted to use when that came out.
Shout out to Scene, to the Honeymoon Grill, to American Fireworks. I'm Zach Jackson. My partner's Ahmad Crump, and we'll see you next time on A to Z.